Apparently, Ukraine is criminally responsible for the crimes of the Soviet Union, while the European Union and the United States plan to control the internet, and the UN is protesting American travel restrictions. Welcome to Stop Fake, the place where we break down Russian disinformation about Ukraine. So let's get to it. Last week, the pro-Kremlin Russian website Ukraina.ru reported that the European Parliament adopted a resolution in which Ukraine, as an heir of the Soviet Union, is recognized as a criminal. According to this fake, the European Parliament states that Ukraine is a target of two forms of criticism, that of being an incarnation of the former USSR and the descendant of contemporary incarnations of neo-Nazism and xenophobia. What is Ukraina.ru talking about? Well, on the 80th anniversary of the beginning of World War II, the European Parliament passed a resolution on the importance of European remembrance for the future of Europe. The document does not address any Ukrainian mythical guilt for World War II, but it does address the very real crimes of Nazi Germany, as well as the very real crimes of the Soviet Union and its successor, Russia. The text states that with their destabilizing actions, it was Nazi Germany and the USSR that unleashed the bloodiest war of the last century. The resolution emphasizes that the two totalitarian regimes cooperated politically, economically, and militarily, and through the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and its secret protocol, agreed to divide Europe. The resolution voices concern at the efforts of the current Russian leadership to whitewash crimes committed by the Soviet totalitarian regime and sees them as a dangerous component of the information war waged against democratic Europe. The text also emphasizes that Russia remains the greatest victim of communist totalitarianism and that its development into a democratic state will be impeded as long as the government and the political elite and political propaganda continue to whitewash communist crimes and glorify the Soviet totalitarian regime. It was specifically these lines that pro-Kremlin media does not mention in their fake stories and instead completely distorted the meaning of the resolution. Finally, this EU resolution condemning the USSR and Russia was widely covered by various Ukrainian media, contrary to Ukraina.ru's claims, and the Ukrainian Institute of National Memory welcomed the document. According to the Russian version of RT, the European Union and the United States are preparing to launch full censorship of the internet. The publication argues that a recent report presented by the British Policy Institute Chatham House calls for total control of information in the United States and the European Union. RT cites Russian media experts who claim that the West wants to control the internet to increase the influence of their own propaganda and establish control over information. Of course, the article also declares that Russia is not spreading any disinformation, and Western countries are supposedly finally beginning to understand this. Now, Chatham House did indeed release a research paper in September of this year that addresses digital media reach, but it is not about internet censorship at all, but rather about EU-US cooperation in tackling disinformation. The paper analyzes the spread of propaganda in social networks and the media and addresses how Western countries can counter disinformation in the future. The paper doesn't call for total control of the internet as RT claims, but only analyzes the elements of information warfare and emphasizes that disinformation is one of the main threats to democracy in the modern world. More to the point, the paper recognizes Russia as the main source of disinformation in the world and proposes several avenues for countering fake information, chief among them the eradication of monopolies among digital companies, advancing training for employees at all levels of government, the cooperation of analysts from various fields, election commissions, communication experts, journalists, legislators, and civil society. Leading these proposals is the reform of the actual journalistic community and increasing the level of trust in media and politicians. To achieve this, the paper advises not to restrict freedom of speech by introducing censorship, but to improve democratic mechanisms to establish complete transparency in the work of the media by naming the sources of media financing and ownership. Russian language site The Insider reported last week that an article by Russia's RIA Novosti entitled "U.S. Denies Visas for UN General Assembly to 18 Russian Diplomats" claims that American authorities would not issue visas to several members of the Russian delegation bound for New York to participate in the UN General Assembly sessions. RIA also claimed that the UN protested the American decision by stopping the work of 2 UN committees, while Russian First Deputy Permanent Representative to the UN, Dmitry Polyansky, suggested moving certain UN meetings from New York to either Vienna or Geneva. But no media wrote about this alleged protest, and even Russian media got caught up in its own lies. Half an hour after the RIA Novosti story, TASS in English reported something completely different, that the General Assembly First Committee that deals with disarmament voted against suspending its work until the visa issue is discussed with the UN Secretary General. 78 countries voted against suspension, 16 supported the motion, and 31 abstained. On October 14, the 6th Committee of the United Nations that deals with legal issues began its deliberations an hour and a half later than scheduled because of protests on the part of the Iranian and Syrian delegations. While some members of the Russian UN delegation were indeed not granted visas in time to attend the UN General Assembly session a few weeks ago, no UN committees actually stopped their work to protest this move by the US authorities. That's it for this week. You can find much more dissected disinformation on our website, StopFake.org. Be vigilant, look out for fakes, and if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, forward it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko Suprun, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.